Yeah.
She's sitting with Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't know if you saw her.
I said hello to her. Good evening, everyone. Are you ready? Okay, not yet. Good evening. Okay, good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:02, and I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthew,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Motney,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Urban,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Crable.
Here.
and absent. And then Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Millawambo.
Here. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna,
Sorry, Mayor, we do also need to take a vote to allow.
right,
Perfect. Okay, I didn't get it on your thing earlier, so I want to make sure.
no,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. And Jeff told me, so that's kind of where I was going.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So can I have a motion to allow Councilmember Crable to participate remotely because he is away on business?
I move that we allow him to participate.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Matthew, second by Councilmember Ward, and voice vote.
Yes, please. Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Urban,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes. Okay, awesome. Councilmember Crable, you are now allowed to participate remotely. And if I do forget at times, make sure to remind us that you would like to ask a question or participate. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to the next item of the agenda, which is a truth in taxation public hearing regarding the Bloomington Public Library tax levy. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for introductory remarks.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I turn this over to Finance Director and also the librarian, Jeannie Hamilton, this is a required step. Truth in taxation, open this up as a public hearing. Before public comment, there's some additional information that Jeannie would like to provide. And it's exciting news. It's something that we shared in a press release a couple of days ago. And I'm going to turn this over to Jeannie at this time. Jeannie?
I'm incredibly excited to share that we have been awarded a State Public Library Construction Act grant of just over $5.6 million. To receive the funds for this grant, we must have a local share of at least $15 million in hand before June 30th of 2022. So the approval of the levy and bond by the council is still incredibly important. Our proposal is to reduce the proposed levy and bond, but not by the full amount of the grant for a variety of reasons. Some of these reasons include the uncertainty of actual construction costs and the fact that grants were always part of the funds that the library committed to securing. Additionally, in July, we received a cost estimate and we made over $5 million in cuts. Part of those cuts included non-brick and mortar items like shelving, furniture, equipment, technology that we always hoped to come back and add to the library when the funds allowed. With that new information, I'll pass it on to Scott for the rest of tonight's truth in taxation hearing regarding this year's levy.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Bill, can you bring up the presentation? Tonight, we'll have the truth and taxation levy, or hearing, excuse me, for the Bloomington Public Library tax levy. The library has its own separate tax levy. As presented previously, the library has proposed to increase its levy to fund the estimated debt service on bonds related to its proposed expansion. State statute requires a truth and taxation hearing for aggregate levy increases over 5%. So the library's increase exceeds this 5%. Therefore, this hearing is being conducted. Next slide, please. So just to set up the levy, I'm essentially just going to read through these bulleted items and set up some of the dynamics. And then next week, when we bring the final adopted levy forward, we'll incorporate all of this into that. The Bloomington Public Library has proposed a facility expansion and renovation with an estimated cost of $22.8 million. The library had proposed $17 million of total cost to be funded via the issuance of general obligation bonds with an annual debt service estimated at $1.1 million, utilizing a 20-year life at 1.83% as provided by our financial advisor. This is just an estimate. The library has proposed to support that debt service via an increase in its tax levy. Next slide, please. The City Council approved a resolution supporting the BPL expansion and renovation and the levy increase on November 8th, and the estimated tax levy on November 22nd, which included the additional $1.1 million for the estimated debt service. The library has now secured a matching state grant of approximately $5.6 million. Half of this is being proposed, $2.8 million, to be applied against the anticipated bond need of $17 million, lowering the estimated bond need to $14.2 million, and the estimated annual debt service from $1.1 million to $850,000. As I indicated, the final levy presented to council next week on December 13th will reflect this adjustment. Next slide, please. Given this, the adjusted 2021 library tax levy proposed for adoption will be decreased from the $6.1 million roughly estimate that was approved on November 22nd to approximately $5.9 million. The 2020 levy was almost $5 million, and this represents an 18.12% increase over the previous year. And as I indicated at the opening of the presentation, state statute requires a truth and taxation hearing for aggregate levy increases of over 5%. So having went through those bullets, I will turn it over for public comment or the hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. And at this point, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone registered for comment?
We do. We have quite a few. If we could start with Carol Coos.
Okay, thank you. And do we have the timer on? Okay.
Yep, we'll be able to run it just for public information. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay.
Okay. I'm Carol Kudis of 305 Woodland Avenue, Bloomington, Illinois. As a 20-year veteran of the Bloomington Public Library Board, I'm speaking on this topic with a great deal of interest as well as considerable experience. As board president in 2006, I led the previous expansion of the library some 15 years ago. We fought much of the same resistance to funding of expansion that we are hearing now. Consequently, the library was only able to secure a fraction of the funding needed to bring services up to the required levels. In fact, the expansion just barely brought the library up to a level that gratified the needs of the community. And it was projected that within 5 years, the expansion effort that we were able to do would be inadequate to serve community demands and needs. Since the previous expansion, the population of this community has grown dramatically. With population growth, community need for meeting places has grown, but the library only has one community room. Expansion would bring us a needed 3 rooms. As well, our youth population has grown, but we only have 1 study room. Expansion would bring us 9. An example of that need is that I serve as a volunteer ESL teacher. If I am unable to secure the one study room, I have to sit with my students in the open stacks and whisper the lesson to them. Also with expansion, we would gain 2 large children's programming rooms and discovery zone with interactive educational features. The expansion would also allow for wider aisles with more accessible shelving for family and disability comfort, and a nursing nook to accommodate mothers with their families. Significantly, our community's needs have grown and changed with the emergence of developed digital technology. Expansion would bring us a computer lab, an innovator makers lab, and a recording studio, all technology that is essential to the education and development of our young people and all patrons as we enter an increasingly technological world. I don't think that the question is whether or not expansion of library space and the consequent expanded services is needed. That's not the question. I think it's only a question of whether we are willing to fund it, and the dialogue that has been primarily about funding underscores that. Bloomington Public Library is a community service, just as any other community service is that the city provides. You're not asking the water department to hold bake sales when it needs to expand their structures or develop their technology to deliver services to a level that adds to the quality of life for this community. So why do that to the library? It's time to fully support the library, just as any other community service is supported and funded by the city government. And it's time for you to show your support and vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kara. Next.
Next, we have Curt Hudson, and then to follow will be Robie Lavery.
Good evening, Curt Hudson from Ward 8, and I'd like to speak in support of the tax levy for library expansion. I've heard you all discuss the vision for this city many times in this room, and I'd like to actually discuss this expansion through that same lens. First, a strong downtown. Is there any private or public space in or around downtown with such a large following as the library? If you want a strong downtown, you need to invest in the anchors, and the library is one of those anchor components. To contemporary city, the library is an extension of the city. It is one of its most visible public amenities and public spaces. Bloomington will never be considered a contemporary city with an antiquated library. Our family loves to stop at public libraries on our road trips. We've visited them throughout Illinois, Wisconsin, New Mexico, many other states. They're safe spaces that really speak to the surrounding community as a whole. What do you suppose our library represents to out-of-town visitors? Would you say they would think this is a contemporary city? And contemporary means more than just the building. It applies to what's actually inside of it. I'm glad that the library is thinking about alternative and progressive uses of its space. Yesterday's books are today's ebooks. Today's ebooks are tomorrow's multimedia, social media, and coding opportunities. You can't be viewed as a contemporary city with a library that is thinking only about books. Would we even think twice about equipping our other public services like the fire department or public works with contemporary technology? 3, connection to community. Libraries can endear citizens to their community. Those connections are the ones that will lead individuals back to this community or keep them actually rooted here. 4, infrastructure. It's no secret that I'm a strong proponent for accelerating Locust Colton and investing in our aging city infrastructure. But I don't agree with the idea that we need to choose between infrastructure or the library. The library is infrastructure. It's bricks and mortar that support our citizens. Just like roads and sewers support our health and safety, libraries support our growth and development. Smooth roads don't matter if they lead to outdated places that no one wants to go to. This levy is a sound investment in not only our city facilities, but in our residents. And for all these reasons, it will pay dividends for this city. We're talking about a modest increase that will result in a contemporary library at a lower tax rate than most of our surrounding communities still. That's value. Please vote yes for a stronger downtown. Vote yes for a contemporary city. Vote yes for amenities that attract and retain residents. Vote yes for the library expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Next.
Next up, we have Robie Lavery, and then to follow Murray Helbig.
Good evening. My name is Robie Lavery. I am a resident of Ward 3, where I've lived most of my life. Can you hear or no? Is that better? Okay, thank you. Growing up in Bloomington, the library was an amazing resource for all of us. I participated in all of the reading programs in the summer, various activities, regularly stopped and used the bookmobile as it stopped in our neighborhoods. It has been a focal point for the community and for providing opportunities for everybody, from our side of town to the west side, to everybody. And however, the library has not kept up. It was built, what, in 75, 76, for a town of 40,000 people. Here we are this many years later, over double the population, and we are still kicking the can down the road saying, we can't, we'll defer the maintenance, we'll defer the updates, we'll defer expansion. I know the last expansion, I knew people who worked at the library and who were struggling with how they could make some of the technological upgrades in the city that the library needed within the constraints of the building. And I have a young son now, and I want to make sure that he has those opportunities, that the library is there, that the programs are there. And speaking to what others have already said, the library has some great facilities, but it's limited. There's not enough community rooms. There's 2 study spaces, and you can only reserve them for 1 hour at a time and only 4 people at a time. The children's department is fantastic. Teen opportunities, the teen room is cramped and small. There is no opportunity. I volunteered at the normal library running helping with some of their teen activities. They're able to do much more because they have much more space. We talk about how we don't have opportunities for our teens. We need something for them to do productively. This is a prime opportunity for them to have a space to meet and do things after school or on weekends, and we're not taking advantage of it. And often we say, what's the cost? What's the cost? We can't do this. We can't fix our roads and do a library. I would say, why not? And if you look at the price of what this is going to cost us, I looked at what it's going to cost me currently, what this expansion will cost. 3 board books a month covers the increase in my taxes. 1 book a month covers that. Oh, sorry, that's for the entire year, my entire taxes. For me, it'll be about $60, $70 increase in taxes. That's the cost of the Consumer Reports subscription we get for free through the library. We get a lot out of it already. Sorry, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Next.
Next up, we have Murray Helbig, and then to follow Judy Stearns.
Good evening. My name is Murray Helbig. I live in, can you hear me?
You probably need to bring it down
I don't like these things. I live in, is that better?
a little bit more. I would say. There you go.
I live in Ward 6 and work for a Life Center for Independent Living, otherwise known as LifeCell in Bloomington. The Bloomington Library has been a part of my life since 1984. I took my kids there. I have attended meetings there and even taught an ESL class in the community room before and during the time of the first expansion, when we all knew that was not going to fit our purposes. In my past role as an ESL teacher, I have found that libraries are not only an important structure of community, but also invaluable to those who are learning English as their second language. Libraries also offer free educational resources, books, and access to computers to those who do not have access to it otherwise. I'm in favor of the expansion for many reasons, but number 1 is accessibility. As the program director for LifeCell, I work constantly to remove the barriers faced by people with disabilities in our community. Having a library with a main entrance on level ground closer to the bus stop will ensure that people with mobility difficulties will no longer have to navigate up and down a steep hill. And by the way, I've also done in my previous jobs at Lifesil bus training. And when I'm training someone with a mobility disability, they're like, what? I have to get up the steep hill just to get into the library? No, I'm out. So we've removed access for those people. So having wider aisles and lower bookshelves will not only allow people with various types of disabilities the ease and comfort of selecting their own books, but also assist young parents who are pushing kids in strollers. This would even help me, as I can't reach the top shelves and can't always climb onto the step stool due to a physical disability of my own. True accessibility involves more than just physical accessibility, and I applaud the city for finally working to make our library accessible to all. As a homeowner, I'm willing to pay an increase in my taxes to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next.
Next up will be Judy Stearns, and then to follow Levi Champion.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love the library too. And I think anybody with, kind of common sense does love it. In fact, I'm a constant user of the library, so I'm in there all the time. But I'm here tonight to speak for somebody that hasn't been spoken for and somebody that isn't here tonight. Probably won't call you. That's the average hardworking citizen of Bloomington. Do you ever, really the marginalized even more, those on the edges. You ever stop to ask yourself, what is great? What happened? Did my mic go off? What is great about the city of Bloomington? If you read like the corporate brochures that Rivian puts out, they make a great big deal. This is an affordable, this is a great small town to live in, and it's affordable. Well, you as a council have a chance to drive another nail in that coffin. And I can tell you that it's just about ready to go underground because it is not affordable anymore. And it's exactly as Nick Beckers said. I don't even know Nick. Hi, Nick. It's exactly as Nick said, it's a death by 1,000 cuts. I go way back 2 terms in your place on city council, Ward 4, and 8 years, 19, I can't even remember, I've conveniently forgotten, but the 8 years preceding 2015, if I could tell you the number of times property taxes did go up, not a lot. Back then that was the big, the big line you didn't cross, but they did. But sales tax over and over, gas tax was common. And then of course we had water bills. Anybody go back far enough in Bloomington to look at your old water bills? They've tripled. My water bill now is higher than any of my other bills. Now, do you understand? Water is an essential. Okay, normal, ordinary, poor people that aren't here tonight have to have water. You guys have just about broke the bank on water bills. And garbage fees, not terribly long ago, it was free. Okay, where's my time at? About done? Those of you who vote yes, and I'm sure you will, you've got all the powers that be behind you. It takes no courage. It takes nothing except that you're in with the in crowd. I want to thank Nick Becker, Sheila Motney, Donna Bolin. If I'm forgetting anybody, please forgive me. They're the only people on this council that care one thing about the average ordinary citizen in Bloomington. We all love the library, but this is frills. It's time for somebody to hold the line on this. I'd like for it to be you, but maybe it's still not time. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next.
Next up, we'll have Levi Champion, and then to follow Linda Foster.
A little difficult going after Judy. By the way, I am the average hardworking Bloomington citizen. My name is Levi Champion from Ward 6, and I'm here to ask that you support the tax levy for the library. I loved our little town library when I was a kid. We had this program called Book It. Some of you have probably heard of it or participated in it. I was told by my teachers that if I went to the library and read books, they'd give me pizza, which is a big deal to a pudgy 10-year-old. So every Saturday, I hauled up to the library, read books, and I said, Mom, I'll be back in 3 hours. We're going to Pizza Hut. All joking aside, this is a no-brainer. There's so much data to support what we're talking about today. The American Library Association notes for every $1 in capital investment into libraries, there's a little more than $5 in economic value return on investment. The next stats are from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago's report, the returns to public library investment, revised actually just this year. More than 50% of Americans visit public libraries each year. Capital expenditures in large local public libraries correlate directly with increases in children's test scores, and in my case, pizza consumption. What I found most interesting in the charts was that even years after capital spending investment to a library, attendance, especially among children, continued to rise, even though the capital expenditure had dropped at that point. To the point I've made before about leveling out of socioeconomic status, reading test scores go up after a library capital spending shock, both to economically advantaged and disadvantaged children. I called and spoke with some people at the Champaign Library, and they noted that their pre-pandemic visitors to the library were almost 3 times that of Bloomington's. And when digging in a little deeper, a big chunk of the difference in usage is because of those amenities that Bloomington currently does not have. Also, a side note, Champaign is getting ready to expand once again and going to put a significant amount of money from the city and from their own funds in the library. So we've got economic benefit and we've got usage. So what's the problem? I think it's messaging. When you say we're going to raise taxes to pay for something, of course people are going to cringe. Why wouldn't they? However, I took a different approach and talked to 10 people about this, and I worded it this way. What if I told you there was a place in town in Bloomington where you can get all of these extra amenities? I'm not going to go into all of them. You all know them. I explained each of the amenities, and I said, and the annual membership fee is about the same as what you pay in 2 months to Netflix. Would you be interested? 10 out of 10, yes. Every single time I would pay for that. And then I explained, well, the membership is a tax, but would you still be interested? They said yes for those amenities. Thank you.
Thank you, Levi. Next.
Next up is Linda Foster, and then to follow Noah Tang.
Good evening. I am, and many members of the NAACP are in favor of the library expansion, including the added financial funding sources. Good evening. My name is Linda Foster, and I live in Ward 1. I've lived in the community for over 44 years and in Ward 1 for over 33 years. I own my own home, and I own other properties as well in Bloomington. Since my ownership, my taxes have gone up expectedly. I know that if my community wants to improve public services, be on the cutting edge of technology, thrive, and provide excellent human services, taxes will be affected. My closest acquaintances live and work in Bloomington. During my career, I've been able to purchase and invest and support my family in many Bloomington ventures and tax-based businesses. In my role as president of the NAACP, Bloomington Normal Branch, incorporated since 1918, we've had to fight for equal housing, equal access, and elimination of race-based discrimination. I want to live in a community that is inclusive, that offers its citizens the best it can. Today, we have the opportunity to do that. A library that is state-of-the-art for all of its citizens, functional, forward-looking, while maximizing flexibility of spaces and infrastructure. We know that the libraries help build healthy communities. What our community looks like and the function we symbolize the meaning of importance to this community. It shows the library's values to its community. We must look toward the future. Our library afforded me the opportunity to complete some of my studies while achieving my master's degree from Illinois State University. I know that many of my friends, including youth, utilize the Bloomington Library for many reasons. It is our conversation regarding the proposal of a state-of-the-art library that we offer many of the amenities that the library should and could provide, including rooms for future expansion. Look, including the expansion is nothing new in most newly built libraries. Accessibility, sensory friendly rooms, water aisles, drive-up windows, recording studios. Imagine young people meeting at the library to do recording. You ever thought of that? We know that when minds are occupied with interest, there's no room for outside distraction. I can see our NAACP Youth Council and the NAACP AXO chapters spreading and hosting many of their events at the library. It could be the hub for our youth and youth group. We must do this now. The financial plan is doable. Let's not let our youth down. Libraries are relevant than ever. Libraries matter. Please vote in his favor.
Thank you, Linda. Next.
Next up is Noah Tang, and then to follow Nicole Moore.
A little taller here. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Noah Tang. I'm a history teacher at Bloomington Public High School, and I live in Ward 1. I also do some internship work at the Bloomington Public Library, sorting out their immense historical document collections dating all the way back to the 1800s. And I've begun to notice a couple of trends that I'd like to share with you today. Even when the library was underfunded and given too small of a space, Bloomington Public Library was a center of our civic life. Back when it was a Withers Public Library, librarians pivoted to the bookmobile to service a growing community when the four walls of Withers were determined too small for a city of its size, right? Back in the 1970s, we were having the exact same discussions as today: where to put this library, how big should it be, or even the question, why should we have a library at all? Let's answer that question. Public libraries are one of the last places where people can go and not expect to spend any money. With commodification and division of the public realm, many of our most vulnerable, the elderly, and the youth need a dedicated space to learn how to interact with each other as citizens of our community. With libraries as an instant access to multitudes of information that may not be available in their own homes, such as internet. For example, during the pandemic, I've had students Zoom into class in a McDonald's parking lot. I see kids often at the library utilizing what computers that they do have. However, it is not enough. As we move further into the 21st century, we need not only to maintain the public spaces we have, but reclaim them to rebuild the social fabric of our communities. The new library expansion project will do just that. The library board has the foresight to ensure special programming rooms for community and children, as well as spaces for young entrepreneurs and tinkerers to create new things. This is an undeniable good for our community. Lastly, when traveling for local history resources, I've noticed just how more impressive other city libraries compared to our own. Both Champaign and Decatur have larger and more beautiful libraries than ours. Their buildings are a testament to what they value. What do we value as our community? What do we build? Builds a message for not only our residents, but people who visit Bloomington. I, for one, am for a small tax increase to fund this project, to focus on our values of community, knowledge, and access to resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah.
Next up, we have Nicole Moore, and then to follow Erika Tisdale.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Dr. Nicole Moore, and I work with children with autism at Illinois State University and their families. I am also a mother, a longstanding member of this community, and a current resident of Ward 3. Today, I want to talk about how this program would benefit underserved members of our community, including the autism community. On a personal note, my family regularly uses the library, attends story hours, special events, and participates in community programs such as ITSE Arts. These resources and programs have given me and my family opportunities to connect with other families and has cultivated a space where my child is excited to learn and has access to books and programs and leading educators. I believe that everyone should have this opportunity. Unfortunately, for many individuals with autism or sensory processing disorders, a library visit can be daunting, even impossible. Fluorescent lighting, potent smells, overstimulation, and the expectation to use an inside voice can be overwhelming. When an individual with autism becomes dysregulated and doesn't have a calming place to go, it can lead to a meltdown, which can be very stressful for the individual and their parent. Parents from the autistic community often share with me that unfortunately, many community sites like the library are places they feel they have to avoid. On the other hand, families have shared that smaller environments that are sensory-friendly programs enjoy those, and they are voicing their opinions that they would like more that's accessible to their children. That is why I was excited to hear that the library had plans to incorporate a sensory-friendly room as part of their expansion plan. By adding a small environment with different lighting, comfortable seating, fidgets, or sensory tools can make the world of difference. The sensory room would help promote a more enriching environment so the autistic individual can better focus and learn. The sensory room would also create a unique space where individuals of all ages, including adults with disabilities, can engage in developmentally appropriate activities. This expansion would also increase more sensory-friendly programs, accommodate large events, school field trips, have access to computer labs that would greatly benefit many of our underserved groups. As a resident of Bloomington, I'm in favor of this increase in this tax levy. I understand that this is an incredibly large investment financially, and it cannot be taken lightly, but the benefits to our community will be for years to come. I think I can agree that many of us here want our city to be welcoming and inclusive for all, and we should make the necessary changes to better support the needs of our community. I believe that passing the library expansion plan can help us reach that goal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Next.
Next up, we have Erika Tisdale, and then to follow Bill Bishop and Candace Bird.
Hello, my name is Erika Tisdale, and I am from Heartland Head Start. And I just wanted to talk about the importance of the library for our families. I run all our literacy events there at the library, and we serve about 275 families. And if the majority of our families were to all come to our events, we wouldn't be able to provide enough space in there for them because the community room is small. And we also would like to be able for our families to utilize the library for the computers, their books, and with all that, and being able to be there just as a big group would be very, very beneficial for this process to have as a bigger expansion for the library, for the children's department especially. Thank you.
Thank you, Erika. Next.
Next up, we have Bill Bishop, and then the last one will be Candace Bird.
Good evening. My name is Bill Bishop, and I'm a resident of the Bloomington Ward 3, and I'm currently a HOA treasurer for Harvest Point subdivision. And my thoughts tonight are not exclusively mine, but they represent many of the members of our HOA neighborhood. As a concerned citizen, I'm opposed to tax levy and oppose the process employed to approve the levy, but let me explain. The 27 million is a large amount of money, and I think it deserves to be put in front of the citizens for a vote. Citizens need a voice on where their tax dollars are being spent, especially when you consider what we've gone through this year. And here are my reasons. The council is basically working off what a committee and a group has recommended, and I think this is a good first step. And I think it needs to be socialized with the community. Are these enhancements something that people will embrace? I believe the final proof of whether we're on target is through the voting process. The optics are bad. As you propose a building project at a point in time when building materials are expensive and people are possibly going through a second pandemic. Also, many Bloomington homeowners are still suffering from the financial loss and very little support from the June flooding and damage. Because some of the worst of the flooding is on the west side, there's a glaring social inequity. The optics are that you're willing to provide a public extra without supporting basic services. Our culture is constantly becoming more online and less brick and mortar. This proposal seems to be a little bit contrarian to the movement towards at-home learning, internet access, ebooks, and e-learning. Conceptually, I'm not sure I agree with the transitioning of our library to more of a community center. Libraries are used for a place of quiet reflection and learning. And I think the media podcast rooms are more about publishing and authoring and less about enriching one's mind. I also think we would add to the noise levels of the library itself. But I'm also not hearing a lot of alternatives, but I'm sure you've considered some. But consider this: space at Eastland Mall and Bergner's and Macy's and all those empty spaces could be an east annex to the library system. Logistics, you've got easy access through the bus system. I know there's the spot where the bus drops off and picks up people between St. Joe's Hospital and Eastland Mall. Plus, there's lots of parking. The enclosed areas allow for walking inside the mall for those who need to take a rest from studying and working at the library, if it was in that location. And also be supportive of local businesses in that area. The location, this would physically move the library in the right direction towards where Bloomington is growing on the east side of town. Safety, the Eastland Mall area is much safer than the current library location. And flexibility. If the Eastland Annex does not prove out, assuming there's clear objectives and goals, then we can say and fail fast. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I think we have Candace next.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Candace, and I am a resident of Molly's Ward 6. I have lived in Bloomington. I've lived in Bloomington my entire life, and I am here to speak to you from two different perspectives. I want to mention and explain the perspective of a single mother, and then also give you the perspective of a working tax-paying citizen. I'm going to come up here and just admit to the council that I am one of the members in the community who cannot afford a tax increase. I live almost paycheck to paycheck myself, and this is not something that I would be excited to hear about, that I have to pay out more of my paycheck. However, as a single mother with only one income in the household, I do approve and am for this increase. Why? Because I feel like it is for the greater good. It is for the betterment of our community. And sometimes when we have to make difficult decisions like this, we need to decide if the bad outweighs the good, or if the good outweighs the bad, I should say. And who is it going to benefit? What percentage of our community is going to be getting the benefits from these amenities and these changes? And with that being thought out versus what I would actually have to pay out, echoing some of the previous speakers' comments about the good that these changes will come to the community, I would agree, and I am in favor. Now, speaking from a working citizen, I am with YWCA McLean, and I am a program coordinator. We have been in conversations with the Bloomington Public Library in the past, right during COVID, working to build an opportunity for hosting classes and offering digital skills and learning to adults. And due to some of the barriers that we had in making that partnership was space. It was space, it was time, and it was the limited capacity of digital optics that they had in the building. So this increase would not only be beneficial to my children, but it would also be beneficial to the options that we have, the opportunities that we offer at YWCA for additional learning. I also have teenagers, and I loved that people were stating that this is also beneficial for the youth. It's the amount of kids that are in that media room and in that computer room is amazing. They are there, they're doing what they love. And the best thing about it, they're not on the streets, and no parent has to look for them, and no one has to worry about if they're safe or if they're doing something illegal. And I think that that's the beauty of it. And the Bloomington Public Library expansion can increase that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did the young lady sign up for public comment?
That's all that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, at this point, I want to give a chance to council to make any comments if they'd like to. don't feel compelled. We have another, next Monday, we also have another opportunity, but if you would like to make some comments as part of the public hearing, feel free to do so.
I would just like to thank everybody that came here to speak. And I would like to digest it all and think about it and before I make a comment next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Motley, it looks like you want to say something.
Sure.
Okay.
So no, I appreciate that. And, you know, the assessor's instructions here in the city of Bloomington talk about what a taxpayer's responsibility is in participating in public hearings and helping us all be mindful of how our taxpayers' money is spent. And so I appreciate not only the showing this evening, but I have received a significant amount of telephone calls and emails from people across the ward and outside of the ward related to this. My thoughts about this project are much different than just the library. I want to compliment the library staff. They've done an outstanding job of pursuing their mission with passion and with success. This is about something broader than just a library, though. It's also about the context of the city's overall spending structure. And so as we come back together next week, that's something that I'd like to center on. We need to do a better job with strategic prioritization for capital expenditures and also for the costs associated with running the day-to-day city operations. We're spending over 50% more than we were just 8 years ago to run this community. And as one of the folks in public comment talked about, it has been through a distributed amount of increased taxation toward our community that is paying for that. So when we talk about this one example in isolation, it doesn't demonstrate its role in the context of this. I'd like to finish by quoting actually an article that was written by Austin Schick here in just the last few days concerning the capital expenditures for the O'Neill pool. And the comment is an interview with city staff talking about the O'Neill Park and pool development perhaps having to be temporarily put on hold. The water feature and the library together, those two costs accumulate to now exceed what was spent on the Coliseum. So in the context of these spends, it's a significant amount of money. In the quote, the comment was made, much like lumber, everything is rising in costs, including labor and materials. In addition, if we were to rush this project and try to get it done, we would be paying premium prices for labor, etc. And it talks about fiscal responsibility with city money. And I really appreciated reading this article because I think it is important for us to look at this in the context of the costs that are escalating all around us. At the same time, we do have tens of millions of dollars of investment needed in the sewer infrastructure, the streets, and also even our street lights as we're learning. So with that, Mayor, I just wanted to place the context of the bigger picture of the overall cost structure. I don't believe investments in amenities and cost reduction are mutually exclusive. I believe there is an opportunity through better managing of strategic prioritization and improving how work is done to make investments that will not raise the burden of taxation additionally upon our residents. So I look forward to having those conversations in the future.
Okay, Councilmember Becker.
Just to echo that a little bit and to take a page from Levi's comments, you know, he talked about looking at something a little differently and presenting it a little differently. If we had started this conversation saying the cost of a bond is $1.1 million, and here are some things we're going to do to reduce other costs and inefficiencies by $1.5 million to offset that, I think this conversation would have been a lot different. I believe we have the ability to do that and have the conversation in that context so that we can spend on some things that maybe we don't need to argue luxury or not luxury here, just maybe that people want. And we can also spend on other things if we reduce the waste and if we reduce overlap in some other functions. So there is a way to do both. We just need to not put that burden on the taxpayers so that the people that need it, our last speaker said it very well, can get it without the additional increase in cost for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthew.
Nick, thank you for saying it that way, because I appreciate what you said. And I agree with you, about working on efficiencies to drive stuff out, because O'Neill Pool and the library are not the last things that we need to fix, right? Bloomington did a significant amount of capital spending in the late 70s, early 80s, and we built an entire series of buildings that we were told that they were going to have a 20 to 30 year lifespan. And here we are almost 50 years later with those same buildings having issues, right? Between 40 to 50 years in a lot of these buildings. And, O'Neill Pool wasn't going to be able to reopen. So we had to do something there. The library needs expanded for all the reasons that everybody just said it in public comment. We've got parking decks that need replaced. We've got the police department, the old city hall building. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have to do. So I look forward to having those conversations to work on finding those efficiencies, because there's more that needs to get done. However, at this point, the library, this is something that we have been working on. I don't even know how long it is at this point. I mean, it's been going. I wish we could have gotten it done 3 years ago, because with rising costs, we could have potentially saved a significant amount of money, but we couldn't get it done 3 years ago. We weren't there yet. And if we put it off again, it's not like anybody's going to magically come back out and roll the dial back and all of a sudden costs are going to be significantly cheaper next year. That never happens. So we're ready. And on top of all that, with the grant too, I mean, now's the time to seize and just get this done and then move on to the next project. But with everything that you said, I absolutely agree with working on efficiencies, because there's more that needs to get done of this aging infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Emig.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to thank everybody who came out for public comment, and I appreciate the perspective shared by my colleagues. For me, the Bloomington Public Library is the farthest thing in my mind from an amenity. I support this expansion because the investment in public libraries ensures the right to literacy, the right to digital access, and the right to furthering one's education. Just to contextualize this about our facility, since 1976, our population has grown by 92%, while the library building has had one expansion, increasing space by only 24%. The renovation would add square feet to existing library space to address this population growth, update the aging facility, increase accessibility for individuals of all abilities, enhance educational services to the community, and increase the number of available study spaces. There is data available for you to calculate return on investment of spending money on public libraries. It's the Every Library Institute, and they have calculated a return on investment for the city of Bloomington and our library. For each tax dollar spent on the library, there is a calculated ROI of $5.66. Increases in library use translate to improved children's test scores. As a literacy researcher, this doesn't happen very often, and the data is extremely convincing. Yes, we need to continue to invest in our infrastructure, but we also need to invest in the infrastructure of our community. I also want to add that the library has done research, on example, looking at the Eastland Mall to see about retrofitting that space, and have concluded with conversations with engineers and others that in order to retrofit the mall, it would be just as expensive and incredibly challenging, given the kind of weight load you need in order to create a library space, the data hubs alone to accommodate the technology, the lighting. Those buildings weren't constructed to serve that purpose. So we would be spending an incredible amount to retrofit that space. Why not invest in this core infrastructure that we have in our community right now? Thank you.
Oh, okay, well. Yes. Councilmember Craybill, do you have any comments to make?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments at this point, I'm going to go ahead and declare the public hearing closed. And the time is 7:57. 6?
6, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. I feel like I need a gavel. And it's recognition and appointments. Madam Clerk, do we have any appointments to announce?
We do. We have 2 to recognize. We've got John Ederlich with the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
And then also Uma Kailasam to the Human Relations Commission.
Okay. And I know Uma is in the audience. And if you'd like to stand, maybe just say hello so everybody could see you. Okay. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. Okay. Okay, and next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We do. We actually received 1 emailed public comment, which was shared with council that came from Bob Sampson. And we have 1 person present to speak, and that's Mary Carlisle.
Mary Carlisle, okay. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased. You may go ahead, Mary.
Okay. Once again, I come before you to voice my concern about the failed sewer infrastructure on the west side of Bloomington. Also of concern is your consideration of increasing property taxes to remodel the library. A library renovation is not as important as making sure everyone in Bloomington has properly functioning sanitary sewer and stormwater sewer systems in their neighborhoods, to their apartments, or to their houses. In fact, the sewer system issue is also a health issue, as raw sewage backup in flooded basements is not healthy. For the past 18 months, the health of everyone has really been uppermost in our minds. So I would think that this should get everyone's attention. The library can function just fine the way it is. People can still check out books and use other resources that are available. Do we really need to build new rooms so people can come in to do their own podcasts? Why should that be the responsibility of the taxpayer? And do people who rent apartments also know that increased property taxes also means increased rent? Did anyone bother to tell them that? Given that the city of Bloomington has not kept up with proper maintenance of roads and sewer infrastructure, we now find ourselves so far behind that $500 to $700 million would be required to bring roads and sewers up to where they should be. Obviously, there is not a savings account with $500 to $700 million waiting to be spent on sewers and roads. So when opportunities are presented, like the $13.3 million taxpayer dollars that the city has and will be receiving, I would hope you would jump at the chance to use those funds for the under-maintained sewers and roads. Similarly, I would also hope you would choose instead to take care of required sewer maintenance before a library remodel. Similarly, how can you justify spending money and raising taxes on a library renovation when the sewers are in such dire need of attention? How can you continue to ignore the situation so many of our neighbors on the west side of Bloomington find themselves in? Don't you think it would be more prudent to make sure the sewer infrastructure is equitable for all residents? Don't you think it's about time the failed sewer infrastructure was finally repaired and not put on the back burner, as has been done for decades? I would think a library remodel can be put on the back burner instead of the storm and sanitary sewer system on the west side of Bloomington. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
That's all the public comment that we have for this
Oh,
evening.
okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Correct? Yes. So are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like to have removed? Okay, so seeing none, is there a motion to
I'll
approve
make a
consent agenda?
motion to approve as presented.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin, sorry, just blanking. He's
I'll second.
tired. Okay, second by Councilmember Crumpler. We get to vote electronically, right? Okay.
And I vote yes as well. Mayor, just to let you know.
Thank you, Councilmember Crable. I hadn't forgotten about you. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. Next item on the agenda, which is a regular agenda, pardon me. A presentation and discussion of Public Works project updates as requested by the Public Works Department. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason for some introductory comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Public Works Director Kevin Cothe is going to make this presentation. This is the third year that we call Road Work Wrap Up. And it's a end of season sharing with the community of what we've accomplished with asphalt and concrete projects. We know as staff that this is one of the top 2 or 3 things that the elected officials hear about from constituents. We also do our best to share that we live in a Midwestern community where, freezing, thawing temperatures are very much a factor. But this council and past councils have made a commitment to try to keep up with the road work preservation and repairs that are necessary. I also want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the prime contractors that have been involved in this for this past year, a very challenging year with COVID. Also the external labor, union labor that helped us out in the community. IDOT is definitely someone to thank as well. And then special gratitude that I extend to the Public Works employees. Very much appreciate what they do for the community. So Kevin, I'm going to turn this over to you. A lot of pictures. I think we've got a video and very proud to share this. This will be posted like we've done in the past on the city's website. Kevin?
Thank you, City Manager Gleason and Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to highlight some of the road work from this past year. And in the presentation tonight, we're going to show over 60 pictures along with a video of Lutz Road that highlights not only the road work, but also the sidewalk work, which I know is important, accommodation, especially in our community. And so with that, next slide, please. We have information that we make available to the public. We have bloomingtonstreets.com, bloomingtonunderground.com. And on these web pages, which are links to the city's website at citybloomington.org and public, specifically to different areas of the public works pages. But there's project updates that are posted there regularly, along with other road construction information and a lot more photos than what I'm going to share with you tonight. So those are good resources for people to use. We've partnered with the town of Normal and McLean County to provide road construction information. A lot of you are familiar with mcgis.org. That is a GIS group that we have as a cooperative effort between all the agencies I just mentioned. And on that, we host now a road construction map viewer. And so people in the community, and that's what the image you see on the right here is, people in the community can go there and see what road construction activities are going on, what roads might be closed, what are partially closed, and so forth. And Bloomington, Normal, and the county update that. And then they also pull updates from IDOT's website as well. And so that's kind of a complete source for road information that we just got going this year. And so we just wanted to share that with everybody. In addition, people can, on our Public Works page, register to get information via text or email push notifications by signing up, and then they find out whenever we have to do road work or sewer work or whatever that might be. It's issued that way as well, that people can get those feeds. So the remaining slides are going to advance automatically, and I'm just going to talk through those. They illustrate the construction work that was completed this year. And the first few slides, and go ahead and, yeah, perfect. These first few slides are work that our own public service crews have done. And they get involved in many different types of road repairs. They fix pavement cuts that may have been done for water repairs, sewer repairs, inlet repairs, or for any other reason that the pavement has to be cut. This is the resurfacing map for this year. This can also be found on the web page. And then we didn't get all the streets done before winter. So this list is the remaining streets that will be finished next spring. And we had 38 streets that were planned for resurfacing in fiscal year 22. We got 23 of those completed before winter. 15 that you saw on that list will be done in the spring. In addition, our fiscal year is obviously May 1st to April 30th. And so timing with construction season doesn't exactly match. So, we did finish wrapping up the FY 2021 resurfacing this year, and then got into the FY 22 resurfacing. So like I said, those 15 streets will be finished in the spring. As you're seeing these slides, typical resurfacing work includes milling the existing pavement to remove the top layer of asphalt. In some cases, the entire pavement is removed when it's very thin. The mill is a rather large machine that grinds away the top layer of asphalt and loads it by conveyor into a nearby dump truck. That's what you're seeing in some of these pictures. That's the milled surface in front of you. The milled asphalt's recycled in various ways. Sometimes it's used for repairing shoulders. It can also be processed and used as what we call a wrap. Reclaimed asphalt product can be incorporated into new asphalt being produced. So there's a lot of ways to recycle the product. After the milling, the remaining pavement is swept and primed before the new asphalt is placed with a paver. Speed humps are added back after the streets resurface. You saw that on Gettysburg. Slides already went by. Resurfacing work may include some curb and gutter replacement as well. Curb and gutter work is expensive, and so it's reserved for use when the curb is no longer serviceable. You'll see in these pictures some new curb and gutter in various places. We don't do the entire street because it's very expensive. And if we did, we would get far fewer streets completed. So we're very selective in what's replaced. And we base that on, is it serviceable? Does it convey water to the curb inlets without eroding soil behind the curb and so forth? The milling and paving operations are moving frequently, and the traffic control is dynamic when we're working on these projects. We encourage drivers to proceed with caution in work zones and follow the directions of the flaggers. You'll see some pictures in here that include flaggers. And then, if residents need special accommodations, they should contact the Public Works Office or speak with our inspector in the field, because we always have somebody that's in charge of the projects, making sure everything's done to specification. After the hot mix asphalt is placed by the paver, rollers compact the asphalt with multiple passes to achieve the desired density. And so you'll see that in some of these pictures, the rollers compacting the asphalt. And sometimes, like in this illustration, we end up replacing some parts of driveways because we sometimes have to adjust the grade on the curb and gutter or on the sidewalks to make everything work. And we have to make people whole when we affect the driveway going into their property. And so this is illustrations of Tawanda Avenue, which was resurfaced finally this year. We had done the Locust Colton Phase 1 a few years ago. Actually, it's been quite a few years ago now, and finally got to resurfacing it. Very soon now, we'll be starting into pictures of sidewalk replacement. And this year, we expect to replace about 2.6 miles of sidewalk during the current fiscal year. This includes replacement of about 175 ADA ramps, which connect the sidewalks to the crosswalks. Overall, the sidewalk mileage is down about a quarter mile from the last fiscal year, but the number of ramp replacements is more than double the number from a year ago. And a lot of that reason is we're doing a lot more residential streets this time as opposed to the arterials. And so here's some of the sidewalk pictures of them forming and pouring sidewalks. Most sidewalk work is associated with resurfacing because sidewalk ramps are need to be ADA compliant after a street's resurfaced. This year's resurfacing and sidewalk work has a high concentration of work near 3 District 87 elementary schools, Stevenson Elementary, Sheridan Elementary, and Bent Elementary. Consequently, substantial improvement was made to school walking routes. Outside of the resurfacing areas, most notable sidewalk projects occurred in the 500 block of McGregor, 300 block of State, 1200 block of Cadwell, and the 200 block of McClellan. We're about roughly 2/3 to 3/4 through the sidewalk program. There'll be more sidewalk to be replaced in the spring as well. Along with the resurfacing program, we're about 2/3 complete. The sidewalk program also has a component that is grinding or saw cutting to bring sidewalks into compliance with ADA requirements to eliminate trip hazards and so forth. That is something that will be ongoing through the winter. This is a map of pavement preservations. This was the C85 locations this year. All the locations have been finished. We did just over 6 miles of C85 this fall. And then in the spring, we'll be doing a reclamite on the newly resurfaced roads, which is just under 10 miles. And that'll be completed in the spring. Dollar-wise, we're roughly 2/3 of the way through the pavement preservation work. This calendar year, for construction-wise anyway, was a challenging year for the contractors. This is Lutz Road, by the way. This is the drone flight we did after the road was paved, but before the sidewalk was put in. The sidewalk work was finished, and then the grading and seeding was done this spring. So even though this is really a video that was taken, I think, last fall or over the winter, the next photos will show some other pictures of Lutz Road construction, which wrapped up this year. Challenging year this year with the spring rains that continued well past May into June, and as we know, with the floods and everything, and even into early July. The work days were somewhat limited early on until later in the summer. In addition, local labor shortages hampered some early progress. Our contractors had a difficult time getting labor from the labor hall. But once we got going, we made great progress. These are photos now from the Locust Colton CSO Phase 2 project, where they're patching back the pavement that was removed for all the underground utility work. Most of these pictures are from Washington Street, which was patched back and then overlaid when it was done. Supplies of certain materials sometimes were short, delaying work a little bit. But we did get a lot of work done this year. And those of you that have been around Bloomington know and can see that. And then last of all, I just want to recognize our contractors who've been featured in this presentation. Row Construction, which is part of United Contractors Midwest, is our contractor for the resurfacing. George Gildner is responsible for the sidewalk work this year, including vertical displacement contract, and Corrective Asphalt Materials is responsible for pavement preservation. Finally, I'll note that this month we're going to be bidding a concrete pavement patching contract to get work going in the spring to fix some concrete panels that are bad on parts of Brown Street and Hershey Road, among others. So that's it. And turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Great work. Council, do we have, does anybody have any questions? Councilmember Crumpler?
Thank you, Mayor. Kevin, thanks for this presentation. It certainly shows all the hard work that Public Works is doing. This is a question that I think has been asked before, and maybe I'm just missing it. I see when I go on the website that there are maps and places to look at what's going on with roads. And I wonder if there could be something that does the same thing for sidewalks. I get a lot of questions about sidewalks. I try to report them on the website as required, but I sometimes wonder if there's something I could, if there was a place I could go and look at it, how the work is progressing, and then say to a resident in my ward, here's what I know about the sidewalk that you're worried about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we, I think, have or had somewhere that we showed the ratings for our sidewalk at one point in time. I'll have to look to see how much we're updating that right now and see if we can't incorporate something for that.
Thanks, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
Okay. Councilmember Boland?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for the work done at the intersection of Veteran, Hamilton, and Fox Creek Road. Yeah, you just solved several problems there. The only complaint I got was advance notice, because they came out Monday morning and everything was reduced to one lane, but they are very happy. Everybody in the neighborhood is very happy with the exits out of Fox Creek area. So thank you.
Yeah, apologize. To the
Oh, and who did that? Was that the city staff?
That was George Gildner was the contractor.
Okay.
They had a sub part of it out. We do about $200,000 worth of contract work that's called pavement patching or replacement. And
it's great.
Yeah. We keep that in reserve for emergencies, but when we don't use it, then we use it to fix bad spots. And Hamilton Road and Fox Creek Road, as you know, there's a stretch in there where there's bad joints periodically. And we've been systematically taking care of the worst ones first. That was a little bit of bad timing that we could have done a little bit better coordination on, I think. So I apologize to the community for the terrible traffic there that we had initially. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Monte?
Hi, thank you, Kevin, and thanks for all that you're doing to help take care of our folks out there. The 2.6 miles of sidewalks that were repaired this year, how many miles of sidewalks do we actually have in Bloomington?
I should know that off the top of my head, and I don't. I'll have to get that for you. I apologize.
And just, I also, like Tom, receive a lot of questions about sidewalks, and it's, I'm just curious with regard to the proactive monitoring of these sidewalks to get in front of keeping them up to date. What processes are in place there, or what opportunity is there to put processes in place so that we are improving the sidewalks, particularly those where there's sinking and they're uneven, I've had now 3 residents in Ward 3 actually injure themselves tripping on sidewalks like that. And just thinking that, I'd like to know more about how we monitor and what could we do to really up that so that we can, help keep our residents safe as they're walking around.
And, some of it is that we rely on people to report it to us, of course, but we did have at one point in time, before we implemented our sidewalk master plan, a host of summer interns that we sent out to rate sidewalks all the way across Bloomington, so we could initially do that. Like I said, I need to check and see what we're doing as far as ratings today, if we're able to keep those up in any way or not. But that's how we developed the initial sidewalk master plan, was from rating people walking every sidewalk in town, checking it and so forth. But you're right, things change over time. Something that was good 10 years ago might not be so good today, right? And just if I could too, mention that, one of the things that with the vertical displacement, the change in elevation that creates those hazards, sometimes it's settlements, other times it's trees that, lift the sidewalk. One of the things that we do in areas where we know that the tree isn't going to go away, right? We might be able to have parks trim the root a little bit or do some things, but ultimately that tree is going to keep growing and pushing on the sidewalk. So invariably it's going to create another hazard a few years down the road. But what we've learned is that we can replace maybe 3 or 4 sidewalk panels, and then we put in what we call reinforced sidewalk. We put in, normally sidewalk does not have rebar in it, doesn't need it. But where the trees are lifting the sidewalk, if we put in rebar, we find that the tree will only lift so far, and then it'll stop because it's too much weight to lift, as opposed to just breaking the panel off and lifting it. And if it does lift it, it kind of forms a smooth arch, if you will, so it doesn't have that vertical hazard that ends up being a tripping hazard for people. So those are some of the things, those situations.
So when was that sidewalk master plan created?
I think we're in the 6th year of the sidewalk master plan, so it would have been, I want to say,
And I'm familiar with the objectives around the curb transitions and all of that, but in terms of just general maintenance of the sidewalks, does it specify for you then an expectation as to, how many feet of sidewalk you should be proactively maintaining each year? Is it that specific in terms of its guidance?
it has guidance for, that's reasons we're spending, in the neighborhood of 1.1 to 1.2 million dollars a year on sidewalks every year for the last 5-6 years, is because that was a recommendation on the master plan. As far as, one of the things that we need to do, I think, is go back and reevaluate the master plan in terms of today, knowing that things don't always stay the same as time goes on and that sort of thing. Because one of the things that the master plan also had suggested is filling in sidewalk gaps. There's certain areas of Bloomington where either sidewalks don't exist or they exist, but there's gaps in between them. And there was recommendations on that too. But our first priority has been getting our sidewalks that we have in good condition, as opposed to trying to fill in the gaps. So the gap filling in has been done in certain cases. If there's a elementary school, we're trying to get kids to school, and instead of having them walk in the street, try to get them to walk on sidewalk. There's a few where we haven't been able to fill in those yet. But like I said, our focus has been on trying to keep the sidewalks in good condition.
So last question, Kevin, so if we're depending upon a citizen to notify us that we need to fix something, once they do notify us, what's your expected lead time to respond and repair that?
It just depends. It can sometimes be well over a year. I mean, I hate to say that, but with the funding we have, we have, with ADA requirements, we have to bring the sidewalks and the ramps up to ADA as we resurface streets. So that drives a lot of it. And then the other part of it is getting on a list with concerns and prioritizing those concerns. If it's a real hazard, we put a barricade there. And I hate to say, but sometimes those barricades are there for more than a year.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. And Councilmember Montney, just to respond to your question, I'm told that we have about 400 plus miles of sidewalk.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Ward.
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation and the continuing information. I would echo some of what council members Crumpler and Montney have said about the sidewalks in terms of really wishing for a similar map, some similar guidance about, what's ahead, what the plan is. Tagging on to that, I think it would also be very useful to have some clarification on what we're not responsible for as a city, because sometimes I think that people have the impression that they're driving down a particular street and they're grumpy because there are potholes on that street, or the sidewalk is in poor condition, when it's not something that as a city we have control over. And I think being able to make that more clear might be useful to people.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes the presentation. Oh, Councilmember Ely.
Thank you for the
Oh,
presentation.
and yes, and Councilmember Crable afterwards.
Okay. And I just want to remind everyone about the Bloomington, My Bloomington app, because so many residents reach out to me to report areas of sidewalk or road, and I try to inform them of the app because it's such a reliable tool for the most part. And then you get the data and you can track your response, and you can see other neighbors who may have reported the same thing. So just that's a great tool that I wish more people would use. And I also want to add that I know when we were able to redo the sidewalks around Sheridan Elementary School, it was due to a Safe Routes grant. The Safe Routes to Schools grants come every 2 years. So the next cycle is not this year, but 2023. And I know there are definitely some areas in my ward where there aren't sidewalks for the kids at all to walk or wait for the bus in some cases. And I just want to make sure that we can prioritize working in conjunction with District 87 to see about getting the data in place needed to potentially apply for that, because that would be a great source of funding for improving those sidewalks.
Yes.
Or adding them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. Great job.
My pleasure.
Oh, sorry. Wow, I must be in a hurry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, I echo some of the comments. I think just more transparency on, the sidewalks so that people know, okay, well, it's not going to get fixed this year, but it'll get fixed next year. Ways that we can prioritize sidewalks that are in very poor condition from other ones. And then on the C-85 reclamation, I did have some angry residents contact me, and I think if we can all get heads up on when that's going to be, and we can work with our residents. Some of mine were upset that they had put brush out, and now they had to take the brush off, or the city or the contractor put the brush back up on their grass and that type of thing. So maybe some forewarning on that. And then on the street, so it sounds like we did, I couldn't remember, was it 15 of 28, or there's maybe 13 roads that didn't get done in this cycle that will get done in next cycle. And I guess, so is that based in part on, I think you said in part, of contractors not having laborers? And I know we've talked in the past about how much more road work could we do if we put more money behind it, and how does the fact, kind of what happened this season and the number of roads that had to get pushed to next season, how much more can we do if we had more money to do it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And part of that too is simply timing of our fiscal year relative to the construction season. As we know, winter is harsh around here, and so most construction kind of stops in the winter, especially with roads. You can't pour concrete or pave asphalt when it's well below zero. But like I say, with issuing a new contract May 1st, part of it's a timing issue as far as carryover, because really it's all in the same fiscal year. It's just not in the same calendar year. So the work's still getting done. It's just not in the same calendar year because of the fiscal year. So.
Okay, Councilmember Crable. Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
No, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Matthey.
Yeah, I was just going to remind Councilmember Craybill to have his constituents put their stuff in the sidewalk, or not in the street, but up on the parkway.
Okay.
Thank you for the reminder, Alderman Matt.
Well, Kevin, thank you for a great presentation for the third time.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right, awesome. Next item on the agenda is city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think I have 3 slides total. Thank you, Phil. 2 new employees, Shane Young and Sakara Brown, both joined the month of November, and we continue to hire well. The process, the workforce is strained in the community. And like I said, I think last meeting, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 attempts, but we try not to sacrifice or lower the, I guess the expectations that we have of new employees. And we've been very fortunate. Thanks, Bill. Next slide. Holiday Hop and Shop, December 16th, 4 to 7 p.m. And take that back one more time. The downtownbloomington.org, the downtownbloomington.org app is a great resource, and please visit that. Last slide. Holiday Farmers Market, well attended. This is at the arena, and again, you can go to the website and pre-order, and Melissa and her team have this down pretty well. So get the orders in. Pickup is December 18th, and that's the one and only in the month of December. And then lastly, I was going to share the tree lighting event last Friday. Mayor and council attended, but it was an enjoyable evening for our first Friday, and it was very well attended. So wanted to say thank you to the staff that set that up, obviously the mayor and council, and for the community coming out. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Gleason. Next time on the agenda is mayor's discussion. And again, just like City Manager Gleason stated, the event for the tree lighting was great, much better attendance than last year. So it keeps improving every year. And it was a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to next year. I think we'll have the whole square completely full. Thank you very much for a great job. Other item that I wanted to mention, I want to congratulate City Manager Gleason for his appointment to the the FEMA National Advisory Council. It's a fantastic opportunity, not only for him, but also for us in Bloomington. I believe he's the only member from Illinois to be appointed to that advisory council. So to have someone like him advising FEMA leadership on national policy regarding catastrophes, I think is fantastic. So let's give him a round of applause. I know he hates the attention, but we're gonna do it anyways. Awesome. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that on December 18th, we are going to have a dedication honoring the life and work of Barb Atkins, who is a former city employee. And this will be on the McLean County Museum of History Plaza, December 18th at 2 p.m. And where there will be a bench and plaque dedicated in her honor. So hopefully it's not going to be too cold, but even if it is, we'll be there, maybe with hot chocolate, in order to remember the life and work of Barb. So that is all I have. And do we have any comments from council members? Councilmember Ward, Bolin, and Matthew, and Crumpler.
Yeah, I would just like to say that in the past week, McLean County hospitals, ICU beds have been 100% full. And hospital beds in McLean County have been 99% full in the past week. The pandemic isn't over. Please, please, please get vaccinated if you are able to do so. You're saving your life, you're saving the lives of other people. It's the right thing to do. You can do this thing. And thank you to everybody who wore a mask tonight.
Okay, Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I was just going to address Alderman Ward's question or comment about the streets that we are responsible for. We are not responsible for Route 9, which would be Empire and Market. We're not responsible for 51, which is Main and Center. We're not responsible for 150, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's like Clinton, that little curvy thing, or Veterans, the entire stretch of Veterans. But I was told, and is, oh, Mr. Colby's still there. I was told that there's an arrangement between the city and the state that you can patch holes that are very bad on those streets. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So if you want to pass that on to.
I was hoping that something like that information could be
Okay.
in the form of a graphic, a map, or something like that on a website.
Okay.
So that people don't have to constantly be told
Sure.
over and over again.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Councilmember Crumpler and then Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if some of you saw the WGLT story, I think it was this weekend, about our former colleague, Councilmember Tom Whalen, who actually lived across from O'Neill Park, and has fond memories of summer spent at the pool with his family. And his family sought to honor him, and they've donated 80 pool passes that will eventually go to kids in the community. Thought that was such an inspiration that I will also donate about 20 additional pool passes for O'Neill Park for kids so that they can enjoy the pool in the summer. So I thought it was just a
Awesome.
great thing for a former council member to do, and I was, again, just inspired by that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That is awesome. Councilmember Matthew.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just going to talk about a couple fun things. Molly and I got to walk on behalf of the city of Bloomington in the holiday parade on Saturday morning. And thank you to Catherine for getting us all set up with candy and stuff. It was a little challenging juggling, passing out candy to all the people that are out there and pulling the wagon at the same time, but we managed through. And then Saturday, Tom got to talk to the Holiday Spectacular, and Sunday I talked to the Holiday Spectacular. And I'm not going to say my Owen Wilson impersonation was on point, but they already invited me back for next year. So I must have done something right there. Yeah, that's it. I think everybody just enjoy spending time with your family and friends and spend the season, making as many memories as you can. It's important, and take hold and do it now while you can. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Craybill, any comments?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other comments, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, second by Councilmember Becker. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Aye.